tonight. Tonight's AGM is in reference to our last fiscal year, April 1, 2023 to March 31, March 2024. I am going to call the meeting to order at 7:08 Eastern Time. That's correct on my calculation for time? Great.
Correct.
Melanie, I would ask that you help us through and our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Lisa. Before we begin, I start by respectfully acknowledging that Equestrian Canada is located on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence and stewardship of the Mississippi and its tributaries dates back to time in memoriam and will continue in perpetuity. We honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this territory, and we acknowledge our shared responsibilities to ensure health and well-being for all creation for generations to come. Further, we respect and affirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples in Canada. Our acknowledgement of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory recognizes the oppressive history and current experience of colonization, and is a reflection of our commitment to decolonize and to recognize and honor the pursuits of Indigenous nations and peoples' self-determination and sovereignty. I'll now begin by going through the official roll call alphabetically. Starting and beginning with category A. I would ask that just everyone confirms their attendance. Category A, Brenda Miner. Just need you to come off mute and say here. Okay. Larry Brinker.
Here.
Wendy Christoph.
Here.
We received regrets from Birgit Empskamp Valkensborg. Next is Desia Miller. Lisa Reimer.
Here.
Oh, thank you, Desia. Lisa Reimer.
Here.
Karen Sparks.
Here.
Corin Weber.
Here.
Martha Wartz.
Here.
Moving on to category B. Deanna Phelan.
Here.
Jessica Anstey.
Here.
Linda Atkinson.
Here.
Jason Edworthy.
Here.
Robert Fournier.
Here.
Cindy Klassen.
Here.
Hillary Parks. Adrian Smith.
Here.
Jerry Sweet. Moving on to category C. Larry Clifford.
Present.
Julie Coulter.
Here.
Amy Davis. Ursula Hosking. Nancy Kavanaugh. Charlotte Nagy.
Here.
Faith Robillard. Joshua Shildroth. Janice Tyndale.
Here. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Janice. And then now for our current board of directors, Lisa Robertson, you are present. Jennifer Hodgson.
Here.
Melanie Biron.
Present.
Wayne Burwash.
Here.
AJ Dallaire.
Here.
Kelly Gravel. Gilles Lavasseur.
Here.
Chris Lowe. Nathan Reeve. I thought I saw Nathan earlier.
Saw Nathan.
Okay.
Nathan was waving as opposed to coming off mute.
I see. Okay, he's here. Incoming board of directors, Marion Cunningham.
I'm here.
Andrea Hayward. Oh, she has sent her regrets in advance. Todd Walsh.
Yeah, here.
Kirsten Giles, our auditor. Is she here yet?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Gord Peterson.
Present.
We know that we spoke with Olivier Lepage, our interpreter. Stephanie Parker, Sport Canada.
Here.
And our EC staff, Meg Kruger,
Here.
Daniel Bonus,
Here.
Marilyn Coram.
Here.
I am here, Melanie McLaren. Jerry Van Blockland, also who is hosting the meeting, and our board recording secretary, Carla Robin.
Oh, hello, Melanie. It's Hillary Parks from OE. My microphone was muted, so I apologize. I'm
No,
here.
thank you very much for letting us know. And in addition, is there anyone else in attendance that was not called?
James Hood is joining from staff.
Okay, so James Hood staff. Anyone else?
Linda Tiefenbach from Saskatchewan Horse Fed.
Okay.
Did I see Tracy McKeag?
Yeah, I'm here, but I'm not a voting member.
Right. And
Same
also
here, Eve-Marie
Eve-Marie?
from Cheval Quebec, but I'm
Yeah.
not a voting member. I'm just assisting. Thank you.
And who is Janet Henderson? Janet?
Yeah, just unmuting. EC member, member of the Rules Committee, attending with the link.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
I believe I counted correctly. We have 18 voting members on the call, which would meet our threshold of quorum. Is that correct? Is my count correct? Meg, Marilyn, Melanie?
I have 18 as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I will declare quorum for tonight's meeting. I'm just going to do some quick updates. We've started doing responsible reporting and update our assembly on our participation from past AGMs. So this year, in the 2024 directors election, we had all 27 voting members participate. So a participation rate of 100%. Thank you so much. It's a critical part of the leadership and the operations of Equestrian Canada. So thank you to our voting members for that. In terms of AGM attendance, at last year's AGM, we had 20 members in attendance, 74% overall, 5 from category A, 6 from category B, and 9 from category C. So again, thank you. And then I don't have the breakdown, but as I mentioned, we have 18 members in attendance this evening. And each year we'll continue to update the Assembly on participation in both the nominations process, the director election process, as well as the AGM. So first item for approval, you received our agenda on August 23rd, 2024. I would like to ask a voting member to make a motion to approve the agenda for the 2024 Equestrian Canada Annual General Meeting as circulated on August 23rd, 2024. Do I have a mover to put it on the floor, please? Hands.
Julie Coulter?
Thank you,
Oh.
Julie. Do I have a seconder?
Josh Sheldroth, I'll second it.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, I will, the motion is on the floor for the approval. Any questions or discussion around the agenda? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Anybody not in favor of approving the agenda? Please either raise your virtual hand or raise your hand, and I will have Meg and Marilyn will scan. Okay, I am going to take that as our agenda has passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Approval of the minutes of the 2023 AGM. Those were also circulated on August 23rd, 2024. We did not receive any requests for corrections in advance of today's meeting. So I am going to ask that we move the motion if there are no requests for corrections. Okay, do I have a mover, please?
I will move it. Janice Tyndall.
Thank you, Janice. Do I have a seconder?
I will second it, Karen Sparks.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, I'd like to ask the voting members. The motion is on the floor. So any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, I will call the question to the floor. Anybody not in favor of approving the minutes from the 2023 Equestrian Canada AGM? All right, seeing none and hearing none, we have our minutes passed. Thank you very much from last year's AGM. Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone again tonight. It was a busy and exciting year for us with the Pan Am Games in Santiago, Chile. We had 3 disciplines qualify for this past summer's Paris Olympic Games, which was incredibly exciting. We had incredible community support in the effort to support those athletes, human and equine, on their complex journey to South America. James was the mastermind between their safe trip. And to nobody, it's no secret that we came home with medals and Olympic berths, which was incredibly exciting for our team, our staff, and our athletes. It wasn't just the athletes that were seeing their hard work come to fruition. The staff and the board continued to work very hard for our horses and those who love them this year. None of this would have been possible without the incredible support of our community. The passion, enthusiasm, and dedication are what make Canadian equestrianism so special. We're grateful, and I'm personally grateful to our devoted volunteers and board members and staff for their work and care and resilience. The professionalism displayed during some challenging times is a testament to the caliber of individuals who remain committed to our mission every day. Also want to thank this group and those amongst this group who work tirelessly, including our coaches, our officials, our event organizers, our equine medication testers, our industry partners, and of course, our provincial and territorial sport organizations, whose partnership with EC on grassroots and sport development is critically important. So thank you. Thank you very, very much. I want to express gratitude to Jennifer Hodgkins, who is my Vice President, Equestrian Canada's Vice President, for your time and expertise in supporting me as I lead the board and supporting Meg as she leads the organization. Jennifer, thank you so much. And finally, and from my heart, I want to thank our 3 outgoing board members, Chris Lowe, who couldn't be with us tonight, Melanie Biron, and Wayne Bourash. I am so grateful to each of you for the many volunteer hours you committed and the expertise you brought to the table to make the organization a better place than when you joined. Thank you, and you will each be missed very much by the board. I'm going to go into, it's kind of I'll continue to speak. The next is what I'll call my president's report. As I said, it was a very, very busy year for our board and staff as we were laser focused on our strategic plan of building a better future. 3 years ago, when we worked with our community on this strat plan, we knew there would be several years of building the foundation, which at the time had many cracks. It's no secret, again, due to instability with CEO turnover, staff turnover, a board working too much in operations, and a lack of clarity on purpose for the board and for the staff. I'm pleased to tell you that we are in a much different place today. Our incredibly talented CEO, Meg Kruger, has been in role for 3 years now. The staff structure has been reimagined, and staff have clear job profiles with defined goals tied to our strategic direction. The board is completely out of operations and made up of incredibly talented and dedicated individuals who bring important expertise in business, in sport, and in the equestrian world. Building on the foundation, it's not the flashy stuff. It's just like your house. It eventually gets buried, never to be thought about again as you go into the fun and beautiful design, and that becomes the focus and the part that we all admire. But without the foundation, of which we've been working very hard on, the walls would crack, your windows would break, and you'd be in the Groundhog Day of constant state of repairs, redundant work, and financial pressure. And that's where we were, and we are no longer there. I'm confident to say our foundation is stable, and we are now building and refining the parts of the organization that will shine in our community and better support our equine community. National ranking system, Canadian Equine Traceability Program, provincial grants to support horses and horse people across the country are just a few highlights that our foundation is now able to support. The annual report speaks to a lot more accomplishments that are a lot more of our accomplishments that happened in last year and how this work impacts our community. In addition to the work in the annual report, I'd like to speak to a couple of critical pieces of board work from last year. As you recall from last year's AGM, the Phase 1 governance review, bylaw changes were approved by our voting members, a sensible and necessary step in our governance modernization. This past year, the Phase 1 governance review work was completed, bringing our bylaws in compliance with the Sport Governance Code. In addition, the governance manual has been discontinued in order to eliminate redundancy, conflicts, and create a simplified and more intuitive way for our community to find our bylaws and our policies. A new board onboarding process was created and is being used with this year's incoming board member cohort. This process allows new board members to get a leg up on board education and basic understanding of how we operate and what we're working on. All great governance improvements. It should be noted, and I'm proud to note, that Sport Canada and all Canadian national sport organizations to continue to work closely with the federal government as they are continuing to evolve the Canadian sport system, sport governance, which they are directly tying to federal sport funding. So it goes without saying, this will remain a major focus for Equestrian Canada moving into the future. We have started Phase 2 of the governance review. The board struck an inclusion working group made up of some of our community. The group includes a PTSO executive director, a para-athlete, a coach, rider, facility owner, myself, the chair of our governance committee, AJ, and Meg. The working group agreed we wanted to hear more voices from across the country. So in partnership with our PTSOs, we were able to send a survey out to their membership to better understand how the greater equine community wants their voices heard. We had unprecedented participation. Just under 2,000 responses were received. The work of the group continues in this fiscal year as we have summarized an incredible volume of information. We've prioritized the feedback, and we have worked hard to understand if the issues lie with our bylaws or with our operating structures. We know our community is eager for a definitive answer on the membership structure, but we're not there yet. We have overlaid the feedback on our bylaws and operating structures, and we're not ready to recommend something just yet. We do not want to make any assumptions. We do not want to make any quick decisions, and we want to make sure that our recommended changes do not create unintended consequences. I understand this is frustrating. It's frustrating for me as well, but we must remember it is not a simple organization, and it is not a simple task that we have in front of us. It must be well thought out to ensure our work makes sense to the 27 voting members who will ultimately have to vote for change if the bylaws are involved. Okay, I'm going to shift gears into some positive feedback that Sport Canada and the NSO community has recognized the work that we have done in governance. And in fact, we are being recognized as sport governance leaders and a leader in safe sport. And we're very, very proud of this. I'm also happy to report we created and completed a fulsome CEO performance management process. I have been formally meeting with Meg quarterly to do goals review, discuss challenges and stressors, and ensure the board understands and supports her satisfaction level. This culminated in a full review in late spring, including a full board assessment and a self-assessment. A formal process like this has not been in place in a very long time, not since I've been a member of the board at least, and this was much overdue. And finally, it's my pleasure to welcome our 3 new board members, Marion Cunningham from British Columbia, who's on the call this evening, Andrea Hayward from British Columbia as well. Andrea unfortunately couldn't make the call, and Todd Welsh from Alberta. I'm looking forward to getting to work with each of you in the coming weeks. Thank you. I'm now going to pass off to Melanie to introduce our Sport Canada rep.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Stephanie Parker, she is present this evening, but she's going to be joining us as an observer, but we would like to let everyone know how thankful we are that Stephanie, who is a senior program analyst in the programs division at Sport Canada, has joined us this evening. Sport Canada has been an important and valued partner of Equestrian Canada for many years. We greatly appreciate their support of our organization, of our sport, and we could not achieve the work we're doing today and our vision and our dreams for the future without them. Ensuring a safe and welcoming sporting environment is very important to Sport Canada and the federal government, and it is equally as important to us as the NSO for equestrian sport in Canada. We greatly appreciate the support in areas of funding received for gender equity, equity, diversity, and inclusion, the community's Sport for All initiative, and of course, our core funding that supports athletes in their pursuit of high performance goals. I'm now going to pass it over to Meg, our CEO, who will share her management report.
Thank you, Melanie. And Jerry, would you be able to share the screen? I have a very short PowerPoint to help me walk through some of the updates I'm going to provide today. So we'll just give Jerry a moment. Okay, well, I'm going to get started. Mel, if you could maybe help ask Jerry to share the screen, I'd really appreciate it. So fiscal year 24, as Lisa mentioned, is the year that we're reporting on today. It was the second year of our strategic plan, that's Strategy 2025, Building for a Better Future. The plan is going to be wrapping up in 2025, and in the spring of next year, it will be replaced by a new one. So today I'm going to share a few updates about our operational activities during the last fiscal year and what the impact was of the actions and the programs that we've had in place, what those have had on our community. So the first thing I wanted to start with was just a reminder about who EC is, because I often hear that EC and our mandate is confusing. Now, Jerry, I saw that the slide popped up. If you'd be able to help with that, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so if you can jump forward to the 4th slide. This one, perfect. So EC is an RCAAA. This is a charitable status that is given to one charity per sport in Canada who represents the sport nationwide. You can jump to the next slide. We were formed in 1977, and our purpose is to champion best practices, encourage participation, and strive for excellence. And we're dedicated to fostering a love of horses and sport for life. EC is governed by people and policies. The people who govern us are the 27 voting members, many of which who are on the call today, and they're representing 3 groups of participants in our sport across the country. They have a very specific job, and that's to elect board of directors, approve changes to bylaws, and receive our audited financials. And then the policies that define us are called our bylaws and our articles of continuance. And these are both available in both official languages on our website. Moving forward, just to touch a little bit on who we are and how we spend our funds. So on average, EC generates about 6.65 million in revenue a year. It's fairly consistent, but it does vary based on the year in the quadrennial. 70% of our revenue comes from the sport system. So that's running competitions, selling memberships and licenses that are there to support participation in sport. 20% comes from federal funders such as Sport Canada, the Canadian Olympic Committee, the Canadian Paralympic Committee, plus other grants and federal funds like Mel mentioned earlier, the Community Sport for All and the GEEDI. And finally, 10% comes from fundraising and commercial revenue. And so that split is about 5% that's coming in through donations and fundraising, and then another 5% in other commercial revenues like e-learning and product sales. When we're looking at our total expenses, EC has 5 departments and 5 areas where staff and committees are focused. So we've got 32 staff, 3 technical advisors for high performance, and then 100 to 120, 130 volunteers on our committees. So collectively, we're spending our revenue, just under 47% gets spent on high performance, 24.1% gets spent on sport operations. So that is supporting the competitions, membership, and licenses. 11.7 is spent on sport development, and that's supporting learning, curriculum, coach, and programs like Rookie Riders and Learn to Ride and Drive. And then we have just under 13% that we're spending on marketing, business development, and corporate. And finally, 5% on equine welfare. Jump to the next slide, please. We're very proud to congratulate the achievements of our athletes at the Pan American Games in fiscal year 24. All 3 disciplines, as you can see on the screen and as you can read in the annual report, did a fantastic job, and they qualified their disciplines for the Paris Olympics. I'd like to congratulate and recognize eventing for team gold, show jumping for team silver, and dressage with the team bronze. I'd also like to congratulate our Paralympic athletes who each qualified during various competitions in the fiscal year and also carrying over into next fiscal year to send a team to the Paralympics in 2024. As you can see on the right, attending a major games is not a small expense. It consistently costs us, on average, about $1 million per major game year, and that represents about 15% of our total expenses. The Pan American Games, horse transportation alone to get to Chile represented 64% of the total expense that we invested, reaching $640,000 in total. A few other recognitions for sport and high performance results last fiscal year. When we look to the future of our sport, we had 27 next-gen athletes competing for Team Canada at the 2023 NAYC, the North American Youth Championships. They brought home 5 medals, including 3 gold and 2 bronze. In driving, Canadian Kelly Bruder climbed to top position in the FEI Driving Singles World Rankings. And finally, in vaulting, Avril Saunders made history for Canada at the FEI Vaulting World Championships for young vaulters and juniors in Sweden by winning a silver medal in the individual female young vaulter division. And this is not a small achievement. This is the first time a Canadian vaulter has stood on the podium at a World Championship event. So congratulations to all of our athletes, grooms, owners, coaches, and support teams. And of course, thank you to our technical advisors, Ian Miller for show jumping, Clive Milkins for pair dressage, and Rebecca Howard for eventing. And last section of my updates are to speak about some of the activities we undertook and impacts as they relate back to the strategic plan. So in the first pillar, through a federal grant, we completed a fundraising audit in July of 2023, and recommendations that came out of that created a new fundraising strategy and also enabled the recruitment of a business development officer at the end of March in 2024. We, as Lisa mentioned earlier, we've achieved a 3-year run of stable leadership at both board and CEO level, and at the last AGM in 2023, the members approved new bylaws that are compliant with the Sport Governance Code. The board and staff, developed and finalized a risk management framework with a tool that the senior leaders kicked off at the beginning of the year. And that helps us to analyze risk and then create strategies to address risk. And it's reviewed by the board quarterly. Lisa spoke to grants. The National Education Fund was launched in May of 2023, and that now provides $50,000 a year for PTSOs to apply for funding so that they can support and enable themselves to be able to deliver both NCCP and coach education initiatives. Last year, just under $15,000 was awarded in 4 total grants, and the remainder of the funds carry forward, so they'll be available to be used in the next fiscal year. And then the last update in this section, or in the first pillar, we applied for and attained $206,150 in a fantastic grant called Community Sport for All. And that enabled us to hire a coordinator of equestrian foundations last fall to promote rookie riders and learn to ride and drive nationally and to set a national standard for quality assurance. So through this funding, we're also going to apply to Physical Health and Education Canada for endorsement of rookie riders so that it can open doors for that program into the school system. Looking at the second pillar, in addition to the Olympic and Paralympic qualification and celebrations that I noted a little bit earlier, we completed a process and technology audit with a company called Protivity. They were engaged in August of 2023 and they finished their work in December. Immediately following that, we struck an internal IT steering committee that is charged with implementing the recommendations that came out of that report. And then in August, we completed the economic and socioeconomic equine industry study with support from Sport Canada to provide post-COVID insights into the state and health of the Canadian equine and equestrian sector. We have that study available in both official languages on our website, and it helps provide the industry, organizers, and businesses with a really in-depth understanding of how the state and health of the sector. And as a reminder, the last study was done in 2010. Jerry, if you can jump to the next slide, I just have a few more updates in this section. The first biannual Coach Developer Symposium was hosted in April of 2023. We had 50 coach developers who were updated at this in-person event. After that, we had quarterly coach developer update and knowledge sharing sessions that began at the end of the year, and they're now delivered quarterly. We also had 15 successful coach candidates that registered and completed the HP1 cohort. And by the end of the fiscal year, we had 1,697 coaches in Canada with licensed and registered coach status. From an officials perspective, we held focus groups and virtual town halls in the first quarter of last year. We had 92 officials attending, which is fantastic, out of 448 total. We created a final draft report and recommendations that were delivered in May, so just shortly after. We also acquired some curriculum for stewards education from a subject matter expert, and their exams were updated and redistributed. From the perspective of learning and curriculum, we have been working with Ontario Equestrian, and last year, in the beginning of the fiscal year, we started working to turn around the first phase of the Learn to Ride and Drive curriculum redesign. This update is very exciting. I think collectively I can speak on behalf of EC and the PTSOs. It's much overdue, and we're very excited to see the project come to fruition or to completion in 2025. And the work that we're doing is funded in part by the Sport Development Fund, which received funds from BC, Manitoba, and Newfoundland. And the update includes a skills audit, education assets, updated curriculum, manuals, rubrics, and a training and launch plan once it's all complete. So you can look forward to a select pilot that will be undertaken in January of 2025 and a full launch later that year. A few more updates in this section, national rankings. It was our goal to launch national rankings and championships for our Olympic and Paralympic disciplines within this strat plan. Hunter jumper equitation is already completed, and dressage and eventing committees worked very hard with staff to finalize criteria, develop rankings, and a pilot was launched in the 2024 competition year. Rankings, once they're fully launched and connected to national and regional championships, will help provide transparency to athletes across the country and help recognize performance. We had 4 competition organizer roundtables last winter, and they were attended by 54 organizers from all levels of EC sanctioned competition, and they were there to discuss concerns, share ideas, and discuss also emerging trends. And in my last section, just to touch base, I've talked a lot about some of the key stakeholders that we work with very closely on the day-to-day, but we also have over 15,000 sport license holders, 168 organizers. I mentioned the 1,700 coaches, 450 officials, 11 disciplines, and 6 breed sports. Our strategic plan is very centered on services as the third pillar. And this is how we connect with participants across the country and how we hear the voices that help to change the future of our sport. So in the last year, we've conducted studies, we've sent out surveys, we receive emails daily, we hold town halls, we form working groups and committees. And this is how we hear your voices and how those voices become actionable change. So a few key updates here. After onboarding our national team, board, staff, and committees to Abuse-Free Sport, which is the federal safe sport mechanism in Canada, EC achieved 100% compliance within the timeline set by Sport Canada. We relaunched our website that has some improved user interface and increased access for safe sport information and reporting. And last update, we hired a community experience manager last year who, along with our frontline team, was able to eliminate the coach processing backlog. They resolved a FEI passport processing issue that we had underway, and then they also mapped the customer experience journey. So last winter, they sent out a customer service survey and ratings of satisfaction of EC's online services rated 4.06 out of 5, and satisfaction with EC staff interactions rated 4.14 out of 5. So well done, everybody. So in closing, we cannot achieve what we achieve without the support of our community. So thank you, staff, committees, our board of directors, our voting members, our provinces, territories, our disciplines, our breeds and industry affiliates, our athletes, owners, organizers, coaches, and officials, our sponsors and donors who are investing in our athletes and into the future of our sport, and of course, our funding partners, Sport Canada, On the Podium, the Canadian Olympic and Paralympic Committees, Coaching Association of Canada, and Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada. So thank you. That concludes my update.
Thank you, Meg. I'm just trying to get reorganized here. There we go.
I will be introducing our guest speaker now.
Go ahead,
Are you
Melanie.
okay with me to go ahead,
Yeah,
Lisa?
absolutely. I was just going to throw to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So one of the ways of ensuring that the opinions of athletes are heard and acted upon is through athlete representatives. They support an athlete-centered environment, promoting the holistic development of participants in a safe and healthy manner. For this evening, we invited one of our high-performance athlete representatives to share with us some of his thoughts around his experiences over the fiscal year, as well as some other pieces. Michael Winter and his horse El Mundo helped Canada win eventing gold at the Santiago 2023 Pan American Games, which qualified a full eventing team for Canada for Paris 2024. Mike finished 5th in individual eventing in Santiago. He has previously competed in the Pan American Games at Rio in 2007, winning team eventing silver. He also won team eventing silver at the 2003 Pan American Eventing Championships, when eventing was not included in the Pan Am Games in Santo Domingo. Following 15 years being based in the United States, he founded Wayfarer Eventing with his wife Emma, also an eventer, in 2009 in the UK. Because he's based in the UK, he prepared a video statement for us because he is there running a family business, producing competing horses to the 5-star level. And he continues to event himself and was just recently in Paris for us for Canada. So I'm going to ask Jerry to please play his pre-recorded video statement where he shares some wonderful thoughts with all of us about his role, about high performance, and the important voice of a high performance athlete.
Hi, I'm Mike Winter. I'm a Canadian high performance athlete, 3-time Olympian, 3-time Pan American athlete, World Championship athlete. I am a rider representative on eventing high performance for Equestrian Canada. I started riding at 9 years old and just outside Toronto. Always loved animals and sport, and I fell in love with riding and horses and couldn't spend enough time at the barn riding school horses, signing up for everything I could from all the pony club activities and Prince Philip Games, quiz, all the stable management stuff, went through my pony club levels. Later then quiz, leasing all a horse, finally getting my own horse, falling in love with the sport of eventing. And all the way along, I think I've had various moments of transition from doing it as a hobby to doing it as a profession, to now eventing alongside my family in England. I think I took it on because I saw a huge void and a lack of sort of joined up thinking in eventing and what was happening in Canada, whether that was through high performance leadership and providing of programming to athletes, as well as seeing a lot of my fellow Canadians, I mean, me as well, leaving Canada and a lack of access to upper level competitions in Canada. I mean, amazing job they keep Bromont going, and what a fabulous event and what a great showcase that is for eventing in Canada. But across the country, we've seen a huge decline, especially in qualifying events for international level competition. And without those professionals going to professional high performance riders, particularly going to Canada and spending the summer there, there's a lack of mentorship, a lack of participation in competition that makes venues viable, and the quality instruction. And I'd love to see other Canadian high performance athletes participate in coaching certification. I've done that here in England. I think that educational aspect is really, really important. So we're providing the best training pathways for up and coming riders, and making sure that we have a growth aspect to all equestrian sport in Canada, and my particular interest in eventing growth in Canada. I see, like I said before, high performance being a leadership, teamwork, and a mentoring example through all levels of the sport. And one of my particular interests in that is social license. And I think we have an opportunity, because we get the most media coverage as high performance athletes, to show the best side of our sport. And I think if we can show the reason we do it, for the love of horses, and the partnerships we develop along with our teammates and those both human and equine interactions, and with the highest level of horsemanship and sportsmanship, I think we can really be a shining example to grassroots sports, and hopefully we all benefit from it. The exposure we get from things like the Pan American Games and winning gold medals, if that voice is used in a good way, that can help the sport grow and help the sport navigate its way into a positive direction, I think we can all benefit from each other. That's really important. From a social license perspective, I mean, there are the things in the headlines at the moment about hyperflexion or equipment, what equipment is appropriate, what isn't, spur marks, things like that. And I think the FEI is doing a really good job setting those rules and policing those rules, both on field of play, in venue, and even most recently, off venue, where what training methods people are using at home. And I think that's really important. Along with drug rules, I think the FEI has a very good stance on a zero drug tolerance. I wish some of the national federations would do what they do in the UK, which is have a zero drug tolerance in all sport, and I think in all ridden horses. So that's from schoolies and how pain management is dealt with there, or temperament management is dealt with there. I don't think horses should be ridden on with medical intervention. And I don't think pain management through medical intervention belongs on field of play. I think we have a really, really good group of high performance athletes at the moment. The messaging coming from the high performance leadership is about being more competitive, paying attention to global trends like we talked earlier, and what kind of scores we need to be posting to win medals like we did at the Pan American Games. But from the Pan American Games to Olympics and World Championships is a big jump. There's a lot of much more competitive nations involved in those. And I really hope to see us not just achieve the odd competitive result. I hope that the building of a program through strong leadership and team building through technical leadership and aligning training pathways with competitive execution, we can have a sustainable, competitive, sorry, a sustainable, competitive place on the world stage. And I think that messaging going all the way through other members and grassroots hopefully shows that through hard work, determination, teamwork, and a loving, productive, athletic partnership with our equine athletes, that we can achieve great things. I think so much of riding in horses is about feel and about experience and about things that maybe aren't that tangible to everybody. But that doesn't mean those things are not part of a more scientific approach towards improvement. And as a high performance program, we've engaged in all kinds of different metrics to measure different aspects of what we're doing, whether that be heart rate monitoring, GPS for cross country measuring, or even how we analyze our results, how we look at our past results and create predictions for the future that are attainable, where we see marginal gains. And really, even the way we knew we had a goal to qualify for the Olympics. So we didn't just look at our own results, we looked at other countries' results and what kind of scores we had to put up to qualify. And I think we did that. We really had a lot of confidence in what we had done in training, where we had made gains, and what kind of scores we could put up compared to the other countries. And I think obviously we exceeded expectations. I mean, winning gold medal is really, really important because it showed how this kind of more comprehensive approach, rather than just having a training camp where a coach taught us how to do a better half pass or a better flying change, or, balance better to a fence to get to a better stride, or go a bit faster cross country. These are all important aspects of improvement in training, but the ability to analyze what we're doing and make reasonable predictions about what's achievable is more what I see as a program. It's not about one person giving us one key piece of information, which is transformative. It's about a fully comprehensive approach towards analyzing and understanding things, even if it is to do with what your feel is or your experience, understanding why you feel that, why you feel the horse is tired or why you feel the horse is fitter. It just is a more insightful way of approaching sport, and so many other sports do it. I think it's about time we do as well. I would be lying to say that I've always had the best engagement with Equestrian Canada as it pertains to its support of high performance and them facilitating the things I felt they needed to do as a governing body for us to progress and succeed our program. But I think, in fairness, as this group has been put together with yourself, Emily, Rebecca, our selectors, Bruce, Bonnie and Bruce, Matt Ryan, I think James has done a wonderful job of facilitating our enthusiasm, our ideas, and being able to let us create our own leadership structure within high performance. And I think that was earned, really. So whether it's productive to say EC never facilitated it, or maybe high performance never had its stuff together enough to be able to have the latitude to steer its own ship, let's say. So it has been a really personal growth thing as well. Being part of this committee, it's a really committed group of people, 12 months of the year, not just in the build up to championships. I think we're only getting started. I think that if we can start to align priorities, like with the National Committee on Competitions, grassroots, and how we all work together to create growth, because growth creates income for Equestrian Canada. And that's a growth strategy is really, really important. Not just for high performance, a growth strategy is important for the sustainability of our national governing body. And I would love to be a part of that. And I've had really positive engagements from Lisa and Meg as well when I reached out to them to talk about social license and where Equestrian Canada was with that, and what other aspects beyond TAC or training methods, like I mentioned earlier about the environment and what bedding we use for horses, how we transport horses, how we manage equestrian facilities, and like I said, medication and after sport care for horses. So I've felt really good about the engagement I've had over the last few years. And I appreciate that Equestrian Canada has a lot of different areas of focus. And I just hope that high performance stays a important focus, and that we can be invited to be a part of some of those other challenging areas like grassroots development, national competitions, things like that. I'll just start by saying, again, linking back to social media, high performance globally is responsible for a lot of the social license violations. So it needs to prove its importance, because its importance is not just, for me, navigated through an understanding of equestrian sport. It's navigated through an understanding of the world and how equestrian sport fits into that. And high performance needs to understand that. So there's that. Then there's also a growth of equestrian sport in general requires an industry, and an industry requires professionals. And what motivates professionals is a competitive trajectory to high performance. And I think, again, high performance athletes need to engage in coaching certification to be part of that message and be part of that wider strategy. So I'm not here to tell you high performance is doing everything right and are taking a lead in equestrian sport that everyone should follow. I think we all have a role to play. High performance athletes have to perform in competition and do it in the right way, aligned with social licensing. High performance athletes need to be an asset to the sport through participating in coaching development and certification, so that they are educating the next generation in the best way with the most correct training. And in doing those things, achieving in competition, achieving the right way in competition, and placing importance not on their own accolades, but in what they can contribute as educators, I think that high performance can be a wonderful asset to equestrian sport, from grassroots level, through youth development, through amateur enjoyment, through nurturing other professionals to do what they're doing and mentoring. And that is really sums it up for me of where high performance is now and where I see high performance.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm assuming that's the end.
Yep. So thank you so much to Mike. Of course, him living in the UK, and it was just fantastic for him to share his views with us. And thank you for that, Mike, and also for Emily Gilbert, who is the chair of our High Performance Advisory Group, who helped put that together for us. So thank you so much to everyone involved.
Thanks, Melanie. And I'll just say, pass my appreciation on to him as well. He had noted that Meg and I have spoken to him on several occasions. He asks really hard questions. But what I really appreciate is that he keeps his curiosity. He's willing to listen. He's willing to learn. And and he's been fabulous to work with. So I really, really appreciate, and I know he'll continue to ask hard questions, but I also trust that he'll continue to be curious. So thanks, Melanie, for doing that. All right, we're going to move on to the presentation of the financial statements. It's my pleasure to introduce Kirsten Giles from KPMG, our auditor, to provide an overview of the audited financial statements that you would have received in advance as well. Kirsten?
Thanks so much, Lisa. So my role on the call today is just to, as your audit manager, to speak to our audit report. So the audit financial statements that you've received have a 3-page audit report in the very beginning. And KPMG did perform the audit of the annual financial statement audit in June of this year, which resulted in no findings and therefore enabled us to provide a clean and unmodified audit opinion on those financial statements. You can find that opinion. It's actually on the first page of the auditor's report in both English and French, and it reads as follows. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the organization as of March 31st, 2024, and its results of operations, its changes in net assets, and its cash flows for the year that ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. I did want to take a moment just to thank you for allowing us the continued privilege to serve as your trusted advisors. And I'll pass it back to you, Lisa, for the next part of the presentation on the financial statements.
Lisa, you're on mute.
Thank you. I just got a big thing pop up to say I'm on mute. Thanks. All right, I'm going to introduce the chair of the the board's Financial and Audit Committee, Jennifer Hodgins, who is going to provide an introduction as chair of our committee.
Thank you very much, Lisa and Kirsten. I'd just like to start by first recognizing the work in collaboration over this past year from the members of our Finance and Audit Committee. As chair, I'd like to thank Audrey-Julie Dallaire, Gilles Levasseur, who are both members of our board, Susan Harrison and Zahara Kolia, who are joining us as registered participants, Lisa Robertson, our president, Meg Kruger, our CEO, and Danielle Bowes, our director of finance. As a general comment, I'd like to commend the staff at Equestrian Canada for their efforts and diligence in supporting the important priorities of the organization this year. Importantly, over this past year, the committee has received timely reporting, detailed quarterly financial statements, and budget analysis. And, as reported by Kirsten, our external auditor at KPMG, a clean audit. This committee has been very engaged in discussions and decisions related to the budget planning process, membership fees, establishing an enterprise risk management policy, the SEP, which is the Equine Identification Program, and many other matters impacting the finances of EC. Overall, the committee has observed and noted very high levels of accountability and diligence from the staff around the efforts to meet our budget plan this year. That being said, there's been a number of unforeseen costs that EC has faced this last year that have led to a budget deficit. Notably, cuts in funding from the COC for the Pan Am Games. EC had budgeted $180,000 of funding from the COC this year, which was promised. However, the COC was unable to extend the commitment at the last minute. In addition, a meaningful increase, as you heard, the cost of horse transport to for the Pan Am Games in Chile was also unexpected and was only communicated to EC shortly in advance of those games. These important expenses impacted EC's ability to replenish the reserve fund this fiscal year. And while we look ahead to the next fiscal year, factoring other funding gaps associated with the 2024 Summer Olympics, we do not foresee being able to budget additional injections of funds into the reserve fund for the next fiscal year. On behalf of this committee, our members have spent considerable time discussing the financial health of Equestrian Canada. As many of you have probably also observed, inflationary pressures are quite real, and EC, like many of our NSOs in Canada, are impacted by rising costs in all facets of our economy, from increasing wages, cost of living, food, fuel, and much more. Meg and her team have been very diligent and thoughtful in the budget planning process, and I can assure you that this committee has been deeply invested in the strategic priorities that will support a balanced budget. Fundraising and sponsorship will be even more important as we look ahead to the future, with government funding that has not kept pace with inflationary pressures, and in some regards, as we've seen this year, funding has been cut back. I would like to thank Meg, Danielle, and the rest of the team at EC for the resilience and perseverance as they've worked collectively on our strategic goals and priorities focused on our PTSOs, our members, athletes, and of course our horses. And with that, I'd like to introduce Danielle Bowles, who will speak a little bit more on our FAC report. Over to you, Danielle.
Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks for Kirsten for speaking just now. Just to do a quick summary of our FAC report, there were a few line items. Just a second here, I don't have my stuff up. Sorry about that. There were a few line items that we changed on our statement of operations this year that we either consolidated or expanded upon when preparing the financials. For the revenues, we consolidated the corporate donations, discipline donations, and fundraising. For the expenses, we also consolidated the communications and marketing line items. And as well, in the expense section, we expanded the discipline expenses to show major games as a separate line item. Overall, with our revenues, our FY24 total revenue ended with a $7.321 million, which exceeded the board approved budget of $7.198 million, and which is an increase of $785,000 over the prior year financials. The main contributors for this increase in revenue come from the sport license revenues, discipline revenues, and the donations, fundraising, and sponsorship. As was mentioned a few times already tonight, EC was informed in July that the funding from the COC for the Pan Am Games was going to be reduced compared to the expected funding. This resulted in significant amount of work done by the high performance team, James, and the committee to work to fill this gap to support the athletes. A lot of meetings were done during this time between July and the Pan Am Games with Meg, James, and myself on at least, believe it was every week, every second week, to make sure that this gap was being filled. This work explains the increased revenue mentioned earlier in the donations and fundraising. The EC's operating expenses ended the year with a $7.394 million compared to the $6.494 in the previous fiscal year. And some of these expense categories are due to salaries, which came down by just under $100,000, and it came in 10.5% lower than the board approved budget. This was mainly due to the adjustment of our year-end vacation accrual and not filling a couple vacant positions later in the fiscal year. Also, significant attention was devoted to the legal expense. In FY24, we implemented a new legal ticketing system where all council requests had to go through and be approved by Meg before any consultation was done with legal, which resulted in a $27,000 decrease compared to FY23, and it came in 22.65% under budget. The Pan Am Games, as has been mentioned a few times, came in higher than budgeted. It was about $200,000 and was primarily due to the increased costs of horse transport, horse feed, and veterinarian expenses. Horse transport alone, as Meg mentioned, accounted for over 60% of the Pan Am costs. Also, in FY24, our IT expenses exceeded budget due to two significant projects that had to take place. One of them was a critical, much-needed upgrade of our EC servers, as well as the IT audit that was done by Protiviti, which Meg mentioned earlier, which focused on processes and technology. Overall, the FY24 fiscal year ended with a slightly larger budget larger deficit of 73,000 compared to our board approved budget of just under 25,000. At this time, I do want to say thank you to all the EC staff for all their hard work and commitment of this past fiscal year. It was very challenging. To Kirsten Giles and her team from KPMG for all their hard work on the audit, and especially to Meg for all her support, passion, positivity, and her wonderful leadership.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. We're going to move into questions. And what I think we'll do is we had several questions around finances submitted. I know there may be some questions from the floor, but what I'd like to do is have Meg go through the questions because it actually may answer questions that are on the floor. So are we okay to move forward in that format? I do see, Josh, you have your hand up. Are you okay if we move through these questions and then if your question isn't answered, we'll circle back? Oh, you're on mute.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Okay. I will pass then the floor to Melanie and Meg for the questions.
Okay, fantastic. So what we decided to do, as Lisa mentioned, we got a large number of questions that came in this year, which we were really happy to see. There were some financial, some that were relating to the Olympics, and then some that were general. So we wanted to we couldn't do all of the financial questions, but we've got, I think, 4 or 5 that we're going to go through right now. And then, as Lisa mentioned, we will open the floor. So I'm going to ask Mel to help, just so that it's not a monotonous me reading the question and the answer. So Mel, I'll ask you to read the question, and then I will follow up with an answer.
Sounds good. So first question, coming from someone in the community, why do we have to pay sport license fees? And to me, it's just a money grab.
And this is a question that we hear often, and I think a lot of organizations are hearing this more and more, particularly as as Jennifer alluded to, we're in a very different economic time. So if you wish to compete as a rider, driver, owner, or coach at an EC sanctioned competition anywhere across Canada, it's required that you purchase an EC sport license. When you purchase a sport license, you get access to certain benefits. So obviously you're eligible to compete at EC sanctioned horse shows. You're eligible to earn national ranking points in year-end awards where they're applicable. It varies based on the discipline. We do have member discounts that we work with some of our official partners with. We offer e-learning courses. Education is very important to us and to our community. So it's not just safe sport and concussion education, but we also have free courses we have a new equine care program, we have equine welfare education, and we have other access with discounts to education beyond that. You're able to volunteer on operational committees or task forces. Sport license holders are also eligible to put rule changes forward and as suggestions that go through the rules cycle. We have publications like our EC Insider. As I mentioned earlier with the ranking points, we also track results and competition event calendar lookup, and then also eligible to apply for national grants and bursaries. So I know I spoke at the beginning in my management report about revenue and expenses. The revenue that we generate from sport license sales represents 23%, so it's about $1.5 million of our total revenue that comes in every year. That revenue is used, as I mentioned earlier, to the breakdown splits, but it's there to fund sport administration. It's there to fund programs that are not only supporting high performance, but also domestic competitions, sport development, coaches, athletes, major games, equine welfare, marketing, fundraising, and grassroots programs to help build the sport. Mel, back to you for a second question.
Next question. Have we retained what has been presented to us as restricted funds, the equine medication fund, the levy funds that were presented to us when they were introduced as funds that would be primarily for developing the grassroots riders and for educating officials and coaches?
This is another great question. It's generally one that we hear every year at the AGM. I think there's still some education or remembrance for the past when the EC Corporate Reserve Fund changed. So for those of you who are involved back in the AGM in 2019, both with the direction of our auditor, but also in light of Canada's new Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, The EC corporate reserve change, it removed the historical balances from the reserve fund that you would have seen previously in the audited financial statements. The historical funds that were generated from the equine levy at that time and deposited into the reserve have not been used. They're still there. And then from 2020 forward, after that year, all of the funds that are generated each year are used to, number one, cover the equine medications control program, the operational program. And then any surplus is used to help fund other initiatives within EC, such as equine welfare and other programs. Mel?
Yeah, next question. And this came from one of our PTSO partners. It appears that 20% of your revenues, about $1 million, come from government funding. Our PTSO is not so fortunate, and our provincial government funding has been stagnant at about $80,000 per year since 2019, which is about 5% of our revenue, making us very reliant on membership fees and donations in order to run EC's programs. This leaves us very little for provincial programs and recreation. How is EC planning to help the PTSOs in either advocating for funding from the government for sport or assisting with funding for programming?
Okay, first, I reiterate, I'm sorry to hear that provincial funding has not increased in a period of time. National sport organizations, including EC, are also in a similar situation. We haven't received federal funding increases since 2005. And we all have experience with the cost of inflation over that period. It really does end up equating to defunding and over a long period of time. And for that reason, all of us as sport organizations have to invest in revenue generation and different operational efficiency programs so we can keep delivering on the expected federal mandate in our case and the expected provincial mandate in a PTSO's case, but also to serve our community and, as I mentioned, continue to diversify revenue. So as it relates to PTSO sport support, we constantly through our engagements with EDs, the leadership of PTSOs and myself, discuss and brainstorm how we can better help to pursue provincial funding. And we're happy to do that more and more as the need becomes increased over time. A few years ago in 2021, we collectively lowered the PTSO membership fee. It used to be 10% per member. We lowered that down to $2.50 per person. So that released just about $200,000 back into the provincial budget starting in 2022. So we hope that was an effort that will help generate some additional program spending. We also, in that same effort, moved to collectively allocate between $80,000 and $100,000 per year in grants that are accessible to PTSOs for education. And we also have a National Emergency Response Fund program as well. So further to that, when we're looking forward, we're interested in really building the Sport Development Fund in the next quadrennial so that we can have even more funds available to PTSOs and the grassroots. And we hope that we'll be able to continue discussing this with PTSOs in our meetings and continue to expand on what we can do to support you.
Great, thank you. Next question. Has EC restored the levy funds appropriated to general revenues last year to their original purpose, or are they lost?
This question, when it came in, I had to draw a conclusion to what the question was for because any EC levy fund that is collected operationally for a discipline is applied to the discipline budgets for which it's collected. So we didn't have any levies in the last fiscal year. We don't generally have them that go to general revenues, but I think what the question is referring to relates to a donation that was made in the amount of $19,000, just over $19,000 in fiscal year 23. With a donor direction that it should be used for national team activities for fiscal year 25. And initially it was incorrectly allocated to fiscal year 24 towards the Pan American Games expenses for show jumping. However, we were able to catch that after discussions with the donor and it was corrected and deferred to fiscal year 2025 as the donor requested. And that was resolved before the year end and the audit was completed. So I hope that is the answer to that question. I'm happy to, if the individual who submitted the question wants further clarification, I'm happy to answer that with them directly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. Where is the first promised repayment of $150,000 to the reserve fund?
So as Jennifer mentioned earlier, in fiscal year 2023, we collectively utilized $770,500 from the EC Corporate Reserve. This was part of our strategic initiatives in order to support sending our athletes for the 3 Olympic disciplines to FEI World Championships in Herning, Denmark, and Crotone, Italy. Using those funds out of the reserve came along with the replenishment strategy, which is why this individual is asking about the 150,000. Our target is to replenish 150,000 per year for 5 years to the reserve to replenish those funds. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, last fiscal year, we chose not to replenish the annual funds. The reason for that came down to 2 core reasons that were budgetary or expense changes within the year. So we had completed our budget. We were prepared with that for the Pan American Games. We learned late in the year, it was July, so just a few months before the Pan Am Games, that we would be short $180,000 in funding. Part of the reason for that was just simply the same effect that others are experiencing. The Pan Am Games host organizer reduced the contribution that they were providing to the COC. So therefore the COC reduced their support to EC by that amount. So it was what it was. We had to pivot and react quickly. And that was part of the decision of why we didn't replenish the funds that year, because it was important to us to be able to honor the commitment to go to the Pan American Games and send our athletes. Additionally, as Jennifer mentioned, because we did have a lot of community support from donors to help us get there, was the increase in the cost of horse transportation. This fuel and horse transport was a lot more than we were anticipating that it would be. That came from market pressures, but it also came from some additional fees that were charged by the organizing committee for ground transportation. So all of that to say, that was our strategy to pause the replenishment for a year and use those funds towards supporting the Pan American Games. We do have a continued replenishment strategy. It's just going to mean that in the next quadrennial, so starting in fiscal year 2026, we'll have an accelerated replenishment over 4 years. So we'll be finished by fiscal year 2029.
That's the end of the financial questions for this section. Over to you, Lisa.
There. Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute. Thanks, Melanie, and thanks, Meg. I would now open the floor. Josh, you would have had your hand up first, and if anyone else has questions, please put your virtual hand up, please. Josh?
Thanks, Lisa. I have 2 questions. One of them, to be honest, was answered of the repayment of the 150,000. Thank you. My second question actually is related to a comment you made about the submission of questions. How many questions were submitted total? And I do think personally that perhaps sharing the total submission of questions in a way could be seen as a really progressive move for association. I do think we have to keep in mind we are a members-driven organization. Anyway, I just want to, is there a plan to share those questions? And if so, when would that come out?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Sorry, maybe I wasn't clear at the beginning. I believe, Meg, it was 32 questions total submitted. Is that correct? You can just nod.
33.
33 questions. We have gone through, just in the interest of time, pared them down, removed, if there were anything repetitive, remove them for tonight. But as I said, all of the questions, including tonight's, will be answered and posted with the minutes from this meeting. Once we have done the approval, which we will do within, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks, once we've had a chance to go through and approve, and we've had a chance to look at the minutes, they will get approved. So that absolutely every single question, whether it's repetitive or not, will get answered and shared.
Great. And my question really, I mean, that was one of the questions that you shared was specifically around the value of the sport license. With everything going on in this world, you're seeing USCF competitions that are not or you're seeing events that are not sanctioned under USCF come up, and the value of USCF. So I mean, obviously the same with Equestrian Canada. So I think that would be an important reminder to people of, we do have these organizations come up. With light of social media, how do we be seen more progressive? So I'm glad and appreciative that question perhaps was shared. I look forward to perhaps seeing the rest of them. But thank you for clarifying that very much. And then I just want to mention, and I'm going to totally interject here, Lisa. and just make a quick comment. It probably should have been on the minutes for last year, or perhaps you can decide where this would be inserted. On behalf of the Arabian Group, I really, for 2023, I really want to give a positive shout out to Meg. Meg, your involvement last year on the reciprocal agreement we couldn't have got it done without you. Your leadership around it, I think it's important to note for our members. In fact, I know it is. And the amount of feedback that I know Janet Henderson is on this call as well, or Donna Carpenter got specifically on Meg and the presentation she shared at our Arabian Horse Association convention last year. Was it virtual? Last year was virtual, this year's in person. And the year before, Meg, your presentation was second to none, but you really elevated Equestrian Canada with the presence there. I had so many people come to me and say, oh my gosh, what was, I just asked specific questions. So I hope this can be reflected in the minutes, just in terms of value of breed sport specifically. But I just want to give you that share, Meg. Thank you for everything you've done specifically around those. Thank you.
Josh, thank you for sharing that. It can be a thankless job and a lonely job, and I didn't use the words incredibly talented lightly. We are very lucky to have Meg as our CEO.
Well,
so thank you for taking the time to make that comment.
And Meg, thanks for tolerating me through the process.
Well, I appreciate it, and don't sell yourself short, because you are a mover and a shaker, and you guys were incredible through that process. So I respect you all, and I really enjoy working with you, and hope to continue to do more and more for the years.
Thank you.
All right, back to business. Not that that wasn't great business, but back to our agenda, the acceptance of the financial statements. I can now state that we've completed the acceptance of the financial statements. The voting members have received the 23-24 approved audited financial statements on August 23rd, 2024. They have received the auditor's report and the operations finance report today, and have had the opportunity to ask questions. The audited financial statement approval is a 5-part process. The staff complete the annual financials year-end March 31, 2024, which has been done. The financials are audited by an independent third-party auditor, KPMG, which has also been done. Audited financials are reviewed and approved by the board's finance committee. That was done. Audited financials are approved by the board. This is actually a legal requirement that was completed. And finally, as outlined in the new Not-for-Profit Act, the approved audited financials are presented to the voting members at the AGM, and they are provided with the opportunity to ask questions. And that was part of the new act in 2015. So we are done with the financials. I would now like to thank Kirsten Giles for your time this evening and for your work with Equestrian Canada. And I would ask that you now leave the meeting so we can move to the appointment of the auditor. And I can't see Marilyn or Meg when she's off.
She did leave, Lisa. She had to jump off a few minutes ago. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Yep. Thank you. All right. The last portion of the financial session of the AGM is to appoint an auditor. I would ask that our voting members make a motion to appoint KPMG as our auditor for April 1, 2024 to fiscal year end March 31, 2024. Can I have a mover?
Linda.
I'm sorry.
I got Linda moved, and it looks like Josh seconded. I think that was Josh's voice. Yeah. Any questions?
Lisa, I just want to comment. It's you said March 31st, 2024, but it's to March 31st, 2025 fiscal year.
Sorry.
Just to clarify.
April 1, 24 to March 31, 2025. Thank you for the clarification for the minutes. Okay, I will call this to vote. Anybody not in favor? Seeing none, the motion is passed. All right, now we're on to our second question period. We're getting, if everyone is okay to stay on, we had the meeting booked for 90 minutes. I am absolutely dedicated to staying on. So if everyone else is, I'm going to pass back to Meg and Mel to finish the questions that we did receive from other external groups. And then we will move into our new director introductions. Meg and Mel, I'll let you guys play it by ear if you can move through the questions that were received. And as I mentioned, we will be posting all of these.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. We had, as I mentioned, with all of the questions that we had selected some, we had 11 for this set, so it might take a little bit of time. So Lisa, do you want to give us some guidance on timing? Because we may have to just maybe do another 5 and then publish the rest.
Yeah, let's do 5 and publish the rest.
Okay, perfect. And again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the questions that we did receive were relating to the Paris Olympics. So if you put a question forward and it was relating to the Olympics, it won't get answered to that degree because that's for the next fiscal year. So we're focused on the fiscal year for the Pan Am Games. Okay, Mel.
Okay, we'll get started. The most frequent complaint I hear concerning EC is the poor service in operational areas. Despite considerable progress in automation, this has persisted long enough that I consider it a governance problem. What are the structures and measures planned to rectify this?
Okay, so EC certainly does not want to have a reputation for poor service. It is something that we're working very hard to turn around. And in our pursuit of achieving improvement in that area, we did a few things last year. So I mentioned earlier, we refreshed the website. We wanted to make sure it was easier to use so that a visitor who's coming to the website was able to resolve more of the more common issues on their own independently. The second thing, we started streamlining all of our incoming calls and emails to one single pathway so that all of our inquiries can be triaged and we can start to measure response times. And that's used for training purposes and also to address why certain complaints are taking or questions are taking longer than others. The third thing I mentioned also earlier, we hired a manager of community experience. She came on board to develop and help us manage a customer service strategy. We also conducted a start, stop, continue process exercise that happened with staff, but we also discussed it with all of our committees. And that has created some changes that we're going to be implementing in the next year, so in fiscal year 2025, to help us improve how we're operating and managing sport. And then I also mentioned earlier, we launched that customer service survey last winter. We wanted to collect real-time customer feedback from people who were interacting with our technology and interacting with our staff. And we're happy that our response times, we have a metric now and we can go upwards from there and continue to work on it. So for us, I know Mike Winter talked about data. We're going to continue to collect data and we're going to continue to track that against our progress. We want feedback and we encourage anybody who hasn't had a good experience, who wants to share their feedback about how we can make our experience better, to contact us. So you can either contact me directly at ceo@equestrian.ca or you can contact the sport license team at sportlicenses@equestrian.ca.
Great. Next question. Why, with the advent of the new website, have staff email addresses been dropped?
So we got this question quite a bit, and I know in great thanks to many of our PTSOs, they had received a lot of the inquiries that were coming through to us, and I'm really appreciative for the support that they've supported us with and supported the community and coaches over the last year. So the reason that the individual emails and phone numbers were removed from the website is because when you have a decentralized customer service process, it's really hard to track data. It's hard to track response times. It's hard to make improvements because you're having to spend a lot of work if you can even find where the inquiries are going. So our new approach centralizes all of those incoming calls and emails through one single pathway so that all of the inquiries can be triaged, they can be tracked. We can see how long it takes to respond to different inquiries and which ones take longer, which ones are resolved more quickly. And that helps us improve our systems and also our training. So it's a pretty common practice for corporations and it helps a company improve customer service issues a lot faster.
Okay, this one's pretty long, so just bear with me. I have a question regarding discipline-specific provincial associations, for example, the Provincial Hunter Jumper, Provincial Dressage, or Provincial Horse Trails Associations, etc. I've noticed that in the EC rulebook, eventing is the only sport that requires competitors to be members of the Provincial Eventing Association in order to enter an EC competition. Dressage and Hunter Jumper do not have this requirement, and it seems dependent on each provincial association that the main reason for competitors to purchase a membership is to accumulate points for year-end awards. My question is, why This is a unique case for the sport of eventing, especially as the provincial horse trials associations do not play a role in supporting event venues, organizers, or volunteers. I worry that the requirement of a PHT license turns a lot of potential competitors away from entering sanctioned events. It is far more expensive than either the PTSO or bronze EC membership, both of which are required for many other recreational and/or competitive uses, and most riders tend to purchase anyways. In provinces that have very few events in a year, 5 or less riders that may want to attend only 1 or 2 events typically do not due to extra cost of the provincial horse trials membership. If every other discipline requires only a PTSO and EC membership to compete at an EC sanctioned event, why is eventing the only sport that also requires a provincial discipline association membership as per the EC rules?
Thank you, and thank you for the background on that question as well, for providing the context. So the discipline of eventing works very closely both with PTSOs and also PHTAs. It is a fairly unique discipline in that regard. In many of our provinces, the PHTAs are organizations who are working on and have been in the past years working on things like the eventing omnibus and event schedules to make sure that the competition calendar dates, the event dates are not overlapping. They're also delivering supports to event organizers. They're hosting clinics and then funding to the sport. And most of them are working closely with their PTSOs as well. So the province or territory that you reside in is really going to impact what the services are that your PHTA is going to deliver. Additionally, PHTAs also provide a lot of support in terms of eventing safety programs and MIMS programs as well. So I would really encourage you, if you have questions, to reach out to your PHTA and your PTSO and see what programs they're running and what supports they provide in your region.
Great, thank you. The annual report speaks heavily about system streamlining and optimization with a goal of reducing manual work by 50%. I also noted that you saw a savings of just under $100,000 in salaries and benefits due to attrition and changes in vacation policies. Is EC going to be further reducing their administrative costs via staffing adjustments? If so, can the PTSOs expect more support from EC through funding to run EC programming such as Learn to Ride and Drive and coaching education and certification?
At this time, EC is not planning on reducing administrative costs by a staffing adjustment. That's not how we're going to address efficiency and automation improvements. But for the second part of your question, EC has 2 full-time staff and 1 part-time contractor in the sport development department, and they're 100% focused on Learn to Ride and Drive, rookie riders, and coach education and NCCP certification. At this time, we don't have a plan to allocate more resources than that to the Learn to Ride and Drive program. However, as I mentioned earlier, we work with our PTSOs and we work with several contractors, so we're outsourcing some of that work so that we can achieve the work in the most effective way possible.
Okay, great. This will be the 5th and final question. With your payroll costs between 40 to 50% of your annual expenses, how do you justify EC programming being conducted, administered by the PTSOs out of their own budgets? The PTSOs run EC programs which we have little input into. Can we expect EC to start inviting the PTSOs to help develop content for programming, curriculum, and materials going forward?
And thank you again for this question. It's a complex and really critical relationship for us with our PTSOs. So the NSO or EC, our role is to design, market, and track progress for nationwide programs. Our PTSO partners are delivering those programs within their own province or territory, and that does require administration. And many of them are also innovating because different regions in Canada have different populations and different needs. So we fully and fundamentally embrace a relationship and the importance of empowering PTSOs so that they can deliver in their region. They know what's happening much better than we do, boots on the ground, and expect that they'll be able to fund that delivery work within their budgets. Now, if they do need support, we have developed the national grants, and I want to continue to expand on that grant opportunity because we want to make sure that we have funds available to support expenses if it's needed. And we also offer for some of the PTSOs that are volunteer-based boards and organizations, if they need additional assistance, that we can provide that administration on their behalf for them. So we're holding monthly PTSO coaching meetings. I mentioned earlier, we're holding quarterly leadership meetings. In those meetings, We cover content from everything from program content to the direction of a relationship, how we work together, how we want to work together, how we want to share input with each other, what our common priorities are. We're going to continue to expand those opportunities to engage, and I really welcome the participation and input of all of the PTSOs.
And Josh has his hand up, Meg. Josh?
Yeah, just a quick question. PTSOs have really come up a lot tonight. So my question is, and there's a confidentiality with submission of questions, but are these questions being submitted by employees, so they're internal stakeholders? And are we able to identify that? Because I think that if the answer is yes, then we need to perhaps be engaging the PTSOs a little bit more and be having those internal partner organizations.
All of the questions came with, and some of it is a bit of a function of only being able to go through the list. So we're going through different questions that are also asked by similar individuals, but they're not provided by EC staff for sure. Every question that comes in has a name attached to it. So we know, is it a sport license holder? Is it not a sport license holder? Is it coming from an organization? The majority of the questions that we've had are coming either from voting members, they're coming from sport license holders, and that's, I think with all of the questions that we've asked, those are the only two sources of questions.
They're just very specific, like very drilled down. So that makes me feel like perhaps our internal, like I'm just going to put, it's OEF, right? Somebody internally that is, yes, a member, but it's because they're passionate about the sport, but at the same time, they're an internal employee. So I have some concerns with how drilled down those questions are, that perhaps we have an opportunity to be asking some internal stakeholder questions that don't need to be brought up on this call formally, and these questions don't need to be asked. And I won't take up any more time, but I do think that is relevant to consider.
Yeah, Josh, I hear what you're saying, and it is one of my goals this year to actually sit down with the voting members more than just at the AGM. So hopefully that will help clear up some of these questions. Thanks for your question. Okay, I'm just super cognizant of time. I'm going to pass off to Wayne Burwash. He's the chair of our nominations committee, and he will share some information about this year's election, as well as introduce our new board members.
Thanks, Lisa. How much time? We're really running over. The report is in the package, so I could just speed through. Anyhow,
Wayne, maybe just move, because the report is in the package. I would just move to the introduction of our new board members.
Yeah, well, that's what the other thing I definitely want to say is thank you to the members of the nominating committee who worked very hard and are very dedicated to do that. And so I've got to mention them. There's the 8 of us, 2 with each from each category, representing each category. For category A, it's Joan McCartney and Ann Welsh. For category B, Chris Foley and Tig Harper. And category C, Jill Barton and Lori Houghton. So anyhow, I must really applaud them on their excellent work. And then there's 2 board members, Kelly Gravel and myself. So that makes up the 8. So anyhow, so as has been mentioned, there was 3 vacancies on the board. There was to be filled this year. There was 12 applications, and I must say, again, I don't want to take a lot of time, but the applicants this year were particularly skilled, and so we had 12 real quality applicants, and so it was a difficult decision to decide who should move forward to the ballot, even after personally interviewing all 12 of them. So anyhow, I just had to say that. So anyhow, I think we've already been introduced to our new directors, so I must welcome them aboard. And so I there's only 2 of them here to talk, so I would turn this over to Marion to kind of introduce herself, Marion Cunningham, and then I'll ask Todd Walsh to step up. So Marion, are you still
I'm
with
right
us?
here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I
Hi,
see.
Wayne.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Marion Cunningham. I am a pan-Canadian candidate. I live in West Vancouver and my show horses are in West Vancouver, but I operate a breeding farm and retirement farm in Ontario. I've been riding since I was 11. My kids ride. My family have been involved in horses most of my life. My husband and I have been fortunate enough to own high performance jumpers and put them under some young riders. We've sponsored things at horse shows, etc. I've been well involved with the horse community for quite a while. Outside of the horse world, I spent a number of years working for various political parties and organizations. So I have a fair understanding of governance issues, lobbying, and structure, and I would like to bring that and help EC where I can.
Okay, thank you, Marion. Well, I really appreciate you coming on board, and now I'll call Todd Walsh to introduce himself.
Thanks, Wayne. Name's Todd Walsh. I'm from Alberta and live in St. Albert, just outside of Edmonton. And my professional background is about 20 years at the provincial and a federal level in executive positions. I'm currently a CAO in a provincial adjudicative board and that I oversee strategic leadership and service delivery. But my connection to the equine world is through my daughter. My daughter is a lower limb amputee competing in jumper hunter events. And we recently bought a horse to step up the game, as everyone knows, from lesson horses to going up the skill level. We needed to do that. So we're competing. This was our first year competing at events, and I think I officially got fired as her groom this past weekend. I don't think I made the cut on that one, but I'm committed to this because I asked myself, how can I help my daughter in this? It's not in coaching. It is not in equine life. It's with governance. My strength is board governance, and I've brought provincial boards to a really high level of excellence. And I wanted to share that with this community and give back with my daughter's love and passion for the sport, and now becoming mine quite rapidly. And my commitment to inclusive and excellence in governance, my passion, and I want to bring that to the table and meet as many people as possible. When I'm at the Masters, I was able to meet Dwayne, and when I'm in Toronto, I'll hopefully meet some people at the Royal as well. So thank you. I'm honored and privileged again to help out where I can, and hope to meet everyone in person in the near future.
Okay, well, thank you, Todd, and congratulations to all three. And look forward to wonderful things from you. And I think we're on the right track. And so I'll turn it back to Lisa. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Wayne. And again, welcome, Marion and Todd. All right, we are moving on to the very end of our meeting. I want to thank everybody tonight for sticking with us. We went overtime, but I believe it was incredibly important to go through some of those questions. I'm looking forward to getting the rest of them posted. And I want to thank each of you for contributing to tonight's AGM. With nothing further on the agenda to discuss, I wish you all a wonderful week. And I officially adjourn the Equestrian Canada 2024 Annual General Meeting. And I will call it adjournment at 8:51 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Everybody. Thank you very much for putting this together.
Thanks, Lisa. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
And thank you to everyone.
Good night.
Good night.